Anyway, I'm here today to attempt science magic. I know, that sounds insane, right? Well, to me, magic is simply science I haven't explained yet. Which is true for most of history, but let's dive into ponies, shall we? And Discord somehow drinking the glass to the hot chocolate, and then it turns into a grenade. I'm going to explain that, I swear. This panel apparently forgot the update. I've actually been doing human communication for 9 years at this point. So my qualifications to be a scientist are the following. I have an associate's in biology, a bachelor's in human sexuality. Those are from the University of Delaware. From Rutgers University, I have a master's in human communication. I could be your relationship counselor tomorrow. I don't want to be. I also have an additional 72 total postgraduate courses. And everything ranging from geology to geometry to physics, quantum physics, nuclear physics. I like physics, can you tell? Engineering, metallurgy, chemistry, literature, philosophy. I basically was a professor for about 4 years and decided I didn't like academia at all. But in that time, I decided I would take advantage of one simple fact. As a professor, you're allowed to audit up to 3 classes a semester for 6 weeks without paying a dime. Books are provided. So I just went around and learned stuff while I was there. It was fun. The only reason that most of these science panels exist is because my friend, who was one of the founding members of BabsCon, looked at me and said, "Hey, Fee, how old are the ponies?" I don't know, give me a minute. 2 days later, with no sleep, I walk up to her, drop a notebook on her lap. All of them start the show at age 18, except Fluttershy, who's 19. Granny Smith is 48. Have a good night. And she stared at me like I had lost my mind. Then she read my notes, and she came back to me and went, "You pulled records from the IRS census data from 1880 to 1890 and read all of them? All of them that were relevant." And it's at that point I started sciencing ponies in addition to anime and other fandom things that have come up. I've done the science of Ruby. I've done the science of Serenity. I've done a bunch of crazy things off the wall that I'd never expected to do in my life. The weirdest thing I've run into is the fact that the My Hero Academia frog girl has a tongue that literally terrifies me in its ability to throw someone around. And then I realized that that means that that tongue has the same body mass index as Arnold Schwarzenegger. In terms of, oh, she has like a 300 kilogram tongue. Terrifying. So, I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things. This panel starts with what this panel originally was. This panel was developed in 2017, when we didn't have seasons 7, 8, and 9. This panel gets adapted for seasons 7, 8, and 9, and I get to jump up and down at one point and scream I'm right. Really loud. But, there are some basics that everyone needs to understand before we begin. There are various forms of magic in Equestria, and all of them both relate to each other, and none of them can overrule or interact with each other in a meaningful way. That is to say, I can't compare a unicorn's power directly to Discord's power, because Discord causes things to change at his whim, but a unicorn can throw a blast that can turn a changeling into what can only be described as changeling soup. One thing is using magical power to alter the very physics of something. The other thing is using physics to find out the velocity required to turn someone into soup. 2 different things. They don't really directly interact. And there are various pieces of magic. Pinkie Pie has her own panel. Because I found anytime that I tried to do science panels for My Little Pony, the rule became except Pinkie Pie. Much less all of the rules of all superheroes begin with except Batman.
Batman has no superpower because he's rich.
Well, no. The rules are as follows. Rule 1, accept Batman. Rule 2, reversing the polarity is the last thing you can do. See Rule 1. And then you have 500 rules concerning superheroes. And every one of them says, see Rule 1. So that it became so common that she got her own panel. Which they have given me an hour and a half. That's dangerous. It means I have an opportunity to stop and go over some of that panel. In the meantime, let's begin with the basic magic that every single pony has access to outside of their breed. A cutie mark. They all have them. Every one of them. Griffins can't get them. Changelings don't have them in either form. And Lord forbid Discord get one. Just no. No. And your entire place in society is determined by a magical mark that appears on your butt. And society is so bad about mixing this up, they have an entire squad dedicated to figuring out what they actually are supposed to do. Now, I can't help but imagine that something, somewhere, had to make a conscious decision for that to be a thing. Had to go, no, you're messing this up. I'm going to make someone who can fix it now. I also have to really wonder, what kind of entity would go, they keep messing this up. I know, I'll use it to fix it. If they're messing it up, how are you going to use it to fix it? Wait a minute. But that's the inherent logic here. They misinterpret their marks on a regular basis, or don't take into full scope what their marks are capable of doing. Furthermore, the powers they have to exert on certain things expand exponentially based on the mark they have. There will be video clips for coming up, but... So what does that mean? Well, Rarity can't lift a 100-kilo stone. Until she's either looking for gems or trying to lift the entire tailoring shop to make a single dress. And then she can do all of it. Rainbow Dash has 2 modes. Lazy and fast. And nothing in between. Applejack, we have seen her repeatedly buck things that aren't apples, and it doesn't seem to hurt it that much. But then she bucks a tree, and every apple falls out of the tree, and she knows exactly the precise amount of force to apply to get that effect. Which, by the way, is an obscene level of precision. Because to get an apple stem to snap out of the blue requires enough force to crack the tree bark. But more force than that would permanently damage the tree. And I'm not talking 100 kilos or 50 kilos or 20 kilos of extra force. I'm talking 0.25. I'm talking the difference in Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali punching you. Both are going to hurt, but one of them is going to hurt just a tad less. And when I say it's prevalent through every single pony has one. Every single pony has one so much that Starlight got fed up with them to the point she formed a society around getting rid of them. I could not imagine forming a society around getting rid of tattoos. But she did it. And it's made to the specific place and time they live. That means that if you live on a rock farm, you're probably not going to get anything except for rocks. But if you live in the big city, you have every chance of getting something ranging from taxi driver to train conductor to mayor. And anything in between you can think of. A little weird. Lastly, cutie marks change and evolve with time. What you were applying a cutie mark before, let's say you were running a wagon in one of the frontier towns near Appaloosa, you can now apply that same cutie mark to being a train engineer. As the railroad tracks get laid and trains become more prevalent and wagons become less so. So long as you are driving a vehicle, that cutie mark applies, which is why in the episode where Applejack runs away because she can't win first place, the same person who is driving the wagon team 2 episodes later is driving the train. So long as he's driving a vehicle, it works. Now, let's talk about Unicorn, get into some clips, and then show some hard and fast rules. So, first off, that that just looks very painful. I calculate that force blast there behind Pinkie Pie's head to be equivalent to 3 Mark IV hand grenades. Based on using Rarity's ruler, which happens to be in inches, as a measuring stick to figure out how big a pony is, and then determine the blast radius of the attack mixed with the average density of the hardest known wood to man. That's pretty impressive, just to randomly be able to be like, half a box of frags! And unicorns relatively have to learn a very long time to understand how their magic works. So, let's talk about it. Let's see what all they can do. Okay, this is the wrong screen. Why do you... Thank you. I win. Always got to keep in mind my pacing, making sure the clothes correctly facing. I'm stitching. This is a baby. I'm sorry, small. What? Okay, I have trouble carrying around one plushie. Why you got 6?
No.
Oh yeah, and this. Remember I said changeling soup? Dead. Using frame-by-frame animation to fly off the screen that quickly, using the relative mass of a bug of that size, which comes out to a bug roughly 1.1 meters tall by 1.4 meters long, and with an exoskeleton, bug guts, and everything else inside, you come out to that being about the equivalent force of mass times acceleration equals crocodile bite across the entire body.
Oh.
4,682 newtons.
Oh, dead.
Dead. Little girl show, huh?
Twilight mass murderer. Not we knew that.
So, they can lift stuff. Most of them can teleport or do short-range blinking, that is folding space so that you go from point A to point B, without passing between the space in between and in 0 time. Further, they can all perform simple magical attacks, as well as we see in several episodes where they can all light their horns. Every one of them. The music I played earlier, Magic Inside, is a scene in which every unicorn just lights their horn. They're all capable of this. However, based on their cutie mark, creates the restrictions of what they can do. Twilight is good at magic. End of sentence. Rarity, as illustrated, only really is able to use her magic to either locate gems, move boulders, or move the entire tailoring shop at a whim. If you told Rarity to fight a dragon, she would not be able to do so and would panic and would have no spells in her arsenal to assist her. And then we get into other unicorns, and you see the similar results. If they're really good at something, it shows. Shining Armor, the only spell he ever casts is a giant shield. And he throws his wife. And unicorn magic isn't particularly big, but it's constantly changing. So now we're going to see an illustration of what unicorn magic can do. So, I raised this question. What is all this plugged into? I see no wires. There it is! For reference, that's about 6 car batteries! So, where are the wires?
I assume you take everything at face value, as in you automatically, in this panel, you automatically reject all out-of-universe explanations, like there are no wires because the animators didn't draw them there.
Hold on. There are no wires because the animators didn't draw them. Hold on. The fuck is that? Where does that go? That's clearly a power plug. What is it doing? No, the animators drew them, but there's no.
Okay.
So, you know, it isn't typically powerful until they're trying to do the thing they're good at. DJ Pwn 3 playing music, it doesn't matter how much power it requires. DJ Pwn 3 is going to play music.
Was her horn lit during the ride?
No. No, it was not. It was not glowing. She doesn't show her magic.
So
What if they work on a
power
charge?
I imagine she could impart some of her magic to start it. Because you see when she brings the speakers out, her horn lights up, and then once the speakers start playing, it unlights.
True, yeah.
So she imparts a charge, and that charge lasts for as long as she for a duration. She probably has to impart another charge if it starts running out.
So enchanting.
So, and typically, unicorn magic is the weakest magic represented in Equestria because just about everything either overwhelms it, saps it, absorbs it, rips it from them, or otherwise destroys it. Literally! Tyrek, Discord, Chrysalis, everything else that could possibly harm them. Unicorn magic seems like a joke. The Royal Guard doesn't even rely on it to defend themselves. They have old school swords and shields. Which, when you think about it, is probably not the best use of their time.
And again.
So, now we're going to talk about Alicorn demigods. And yes, I used Evil Celestia for this. So, this is the power of all the Alicorns put together. Remember when My Little Pony tried to be DBZ?
Now I understand why your fellow princesses
Ow.
Out.
Okay, so I now know that 4 Alicorns have about the equivalent magical force of 3 dozen United States Davy Crockett recoilless rifles. Or roughly 360 tons of TNT. Because that's about the size of the blast radius, and I had to use a bunch of calculations involving stuff like, here's Tyrek, here's the blast radius, here's roughly something that gives me a reference point for how big Tyrek is. Therefore, the blast radius is this large. What other explosive equivalents equal this blast radius into what can be considered solid rock? Because it blows through the dirt, and then Tyrek lifts just a giant panel off of him. And I'm like, that's just a chunk of rock, because dirt doesn't work that way. Generally speaking, dirt, i.e. soil, disintegrates when you try to lift it. Hence why you have to use a shovel instead of your hands. So, we know that they must control some sort of element, except the abomination. I'm looking at you, Flurry Heart. Whether that be the sun, the moon, love, or in Twilight's case, friendship. Twilight is new. Her magic is very new. Cadence's magic is better developed, but also still newer. As we saw from an illustration in the past where Cadence was Twilight's babysitter, and Cadence was clearly a short stack. There's an explanation for Flurry Heart, and I will get to that later in the panel. I still don't like the demon, but there's a minor explanation for why it exists. Somewhat. And I would be stretching the truth to say that there's not. And Alicorn magic is, generally speaking, not the strongest thing on the block. As you can see, Tyrek, with all the magic of Pegasi, Unicorns, and Earth Ponies, can stand up to the equivalent of 4 Alicorns in a one-on-one fight. They can't go anywhere. They are at an impasse. Tyrek has to use a bargain to get Twilight to surrender, in a way. The point here being that Discord can also walk up to Luna and Celestia and have them dressed up like clowns dancing on unicycles for him without any free will. And they can do little about it. So, you know that it requires help for their tasks. So when I say help, I mean most of their magic is devoted to doing their element. Look at how hard this actually is for her, and she's got the power of all four of them. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's Thursday!
So, floods kill half the cities and at the coast.
So, what I look at this and I hear is the same thing I hear from Disney's Aladdin. Cosmic infinite power! Leaving space. But the point here is this. They have to put most of their focus into either moving the sun, the moon, fixing or controlling relationships, or dealing with the crystal heart, or dealing with whatever the tree of friendship has come up with for this week. That's where most of their efforts go. And I'm still surprised that Celestia and Luna make it look so easy, and then I realize they're treating it like a muscle. The more you use said muscle, the easier it is to use again. Tear down the muscle, it heals and rebuilds itself stronger. That's literally how lifting weights and muscle building work. You tear the muscle up, you let it rebuild itself stronger, you do it again and again and again until you have enough definition that you can bench press twice your weight. So on and so forth. That's what they treat magic like, is it's a muscle. Now, Discord, I have questions. Not as many as I have for Pinkie Pie, but I do have some questions. So, Discord has rules. Lots of them, believe it or not. And Discord would probably argue with me that he doesn't.
Very fabric of reality again.
Yeah. And I'm still a self-absorbed, below-average illusionist, right?
Actually, I was going to say a couple of those illusions were slightly above average. If you ever need a little chaos in your act, let me know.
Ha! When pigs fly!
Your wish is my command!
I just want to point out, Discord's infinite, all-knowing imagination has the stretchability of a 5-year-old. He takes more from suggestion from others than he comes up with for himself, and he comes up with things such as buffaloes dancing in tutus, flying pigs, chocolate milk that explodes. Neat! But do you have, like, a bigger imagination? Like, you want the princesses to do what you want them to, why not just make them happy and then they'll do whatever you want? No? Okay. So, he seems to have a very limited childlike idea of how the world works. But he has the will to implement it. He can't affect anything he can't see. All of Ponyville is in utter chaos. The rest of Equestria is like, we didn't even notice. Seriously. Entire episodes where he goes off the handle and no one else notices because he cannot affect something he's not in direct sensory perception with. So a very simple tactic is just avoid him. What's he going to do? What can he do about it besides teleport next to you? And when I say his imagination is pretty limited, I mean, he does the same trick 3 times in one episode.
There, and I clearly meant for us to be there and not here.
Oh, I can probably explain that.
Oh, well, if at first you don't succeed. For Fluttershy!
I've been trying to tell you. Nothing other than changeling magic works here.
So, the same things that would inhibit a pony, unicorn, alicorn, or other creature's magic inhibit him. That's peculiar. I thought you were an all-knowing God. Wait a minute. And, well, Pinkie Pie freaks him out. Which makes me ask questions about Pinkie Pie. But Pinkie Pie genuinely scares him. And as I said, I'd bring some other stuff from the other panel over here. Let me go grab that real quick. Hi, Science of Pinkie Pie. Hey, can you show this to me and sort by, I don't know, large icons? That'd be great. Thank you.
Have a wonderful special fantastic cake. Oh, hi, Discord. Want some cake? I can give you a list of all the flavors we have in order, from most delicious to incredibly, unbelievably delicious.
Actually, Pinkie Pie.
Why is he so scared of her?
Do you? Oh, you know what? I am famished. I'll take all the cakes.
All of them? He wants
Oh, so she's the only one that can do that.
Well, I'll need all my energy when I'm dancing at the gala, if I decide to go, that is. Oh, by the way, are you bringing any ponies?
Oh, of course! I was gonna ask my mom, because she's, my mom.
Look how slow she's packing these for a second.
Around and around and around. I couldn't see any pony, and I was about to just go by myself.
And how she's not affected by the fact that he suddenly has a submarine attack periscope.
My sister pie!
You know what? Cancel my order.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So if there are 5, and there's not, some of them have 6 and 7, but let's just average it out to 5. 5 times 16, that is 80. How did she pack 80 cakes that quick?
I thought it was decided that it's Pinkie Pie the questioning. Yeah.
You know, I don't know who decided that, but I'm a scientist. I question everything.
So,
That's okay.
if Discord is not the god, then she must be, huh?
I have no actual determination. That's the problem. But, Discord's freaked out by her a lot. He avoids her. He refuses to let her touch him. And she doesn't seem fazed by his Metal Gear Solid box, Hunt for Red October periscope, or his general sudden appearance of other outside items. What's going on here? Why are you scared of Pinkie Pie? I mean, I'm terrified of her, but that's a different story.
Elder's abomination.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Elder is also scarier than
And
Discord.
Discord's affected by friendship.
It's a little
Involuntarily.
hard to hug.
So, total chaos in Ponyville. Nothing's wrong anywhere else. I said I'd explain this.
Chaos is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Not as wonderful as friends.
It would help if the clip actually played all the way through.
What's this? No.
And, Rainbow Doom Laser. And just like that, everything he did was undone. And notice how I said, it only affects Ponyville. There's literally a delineation line. That's the maximum range he can affect something. Really strange to be the god of chaos and you got a range limit. Alright, Lampa, come on. Give up the ghost. So, that's generally the rules for Discord. Childlike imagination. He has a range limit. He's scared to death of Pinkie Pie for some reason. And, oh yeah, the magic of friendship says, no, go back in your cage. Alright, so, I usually don't talk about Pinkie Pie in this panel. She has her own panel. I'm not a Pinkie Pie fangirl. I hate this pony. Every single thing I've ever tried to do when I'm sciencing My Little Pony, it comes up with except Pinkie Pie. It annoys me. It drives me nuts. It drove me so nuts that my wife challenged me to include her in my books.
I just hate her because she's comedy, I believe.
I did. As a ghost that haunts the main character. I'm just watching his expression.
I'm sensing spite somewhere in this.
That's kind of cruel.
I'm an American. I operate on spite.
Well, no, let's not go there.
But yes, she has her own panel with her own conclusions. It takes an entire hour to explain this horse, and I have very little else to go on other than, please stop eating the fabric of the universe! Bad!
Elders abomination.
Now, friendship magic. Or, as I like to call it, orbital friendship cannon firing. That's just Rainbow Dash crashing into Applejack's barn, but you wouldn't know the difference!
Actually, can I just quickly ask, how much do you think that explosion is? Like, what's that the equivalent to? I need to know.
3.67 megatons.
Thank you.
I have it in my notes. You need an explosion that creates a mushroom cloud and destroys what is basically a hill. With only one detonation. About 3.6 megatons. Or, not a lot. At least to me, not a lot. I mean, Atomic Annie hurls around 7 megatons, so...
Oh, okay.
About half an Atomic Annie. Also, me being an American, I'll do anything except use metric if I can avoid it. Me being a scientist, everything's in metric. Me being an American, crocodile bite. So, friendship magic is super, super highly restricted. What do I mean by that? They all have to agree that it can be used. They all have to have this idea that what they're doing is the right thing. If one of them says no, it doesn't work. Period. Also, they never used this again, and I'm upset. I was really hoping they'd bring this back for the finale, and they didn't.
I may have given you my alicorn magic, but I carry within me the most powerful magic of all.
So, magic of friendship can overwhelm Tyrek, Discord, Alicorns, every other pony in existence, and the land of Equestria itself. Oh, and Tartarus. Okay! So that's a thing. But as I said, it's highly restrictive. It can't be used unless they all agree it can be used. In first instance, Discord and Fluttershy. Fluttershy didn't want to use it, couldn't be used. Second instance, later, Pony of Shadows. Twilight refuses to let them use it, it doesn't work. Unless they all say yes, it doesn't work. It's like having launch codes, but instead of 2 people, it's 6. It's incredibly effective to prevent it from being misused and from being overused, but it begins to question, why is it so restricted? And it's because it's so very new. Remember, this magic was something that even Starswirl the Bearded couldn't get done. It was a spell he never finished. See end of Season 3. It is that new, and whatever entity is controlling these various magics and or is a part of them, i.e. think of it as a body. And the individual pieces of magic are individual organs, and the individual ponies are individual cells of the body. All of them have to be working in unison to function properly. Meaning, chaos magic has to work with pony magic. Pony magic has to work with the changelings, apparently. So on and so forth, for it to be in harmony with itself. Otherwise, it fights itself. Which makes me wonder, why does it need all of that harmony and all these creatures to work together? What outside of this is it scared of? Because normally creatures only force each other to interact with each other in ways in which they either have a guaranteed truce, see lions drinking from the same watering hole as the zebras they're going to hunt later tonight for dinner, but at the time, all of them decide it's okay to not strike each other. Or, what benefits being gained? What growth is happening? And friendship magic has another requirement. It can only be used to bring stuff back into balance. Notice they never actively use it offensively. They don't go to, like, the Griffins who are having a civil war and go, stop this or we're going to blast the other side. They don't go to Discord and threaten him with death. They threaten him with being put back into stasis.
There's truths. Sombra has flesh from his bones.
That was not friendship magic. That was the Crystal Heart. And I have very little idea how that works, because it shows up in 3 episodes and never again.
Oh no, season 9.
That's true. Also, Somber has been confirmed dead.
Very dead.
But bringing back to original state, I mean, Discord originally, he was put in stone once before, but I don't think that was his original state.
No, I don't think it was his original state. I also don't think his current form was his original state. I think it evolved with time. But more importantly, this is how we know that magic is alive. And everyone rolls their eyes. Yeah, magic is alive. It's a living organism. Think about that for a minute. I'll give you a minute. Just a minute. That GIF is exactly a minute long. So, how do we know it's alive? It changes, it adapts, it becomes more powerful, it waxes and wanes, it exercises a form of strength. When the world stopped turning, magic created 2 entities that could turn the universe around it. Because the population that it had created a symbiotic relationship with, ponies, was not going to survive if they could not have night and day cycles. One side of the planet would burn while the other side froze. It's simple logic for how worlds work. They took, and based upon the statements from the Book of Friendship and the core book that creates the universe, as well as from the show itself, Star Swirl had to find a solution that was not going to cause 7 of them to permanently lose their magic every single time they wanted a day to pass. Plants, for those who don't know, also need a rest period, like we do. They have to remove the toxins that have built up over the course of the day through the process of photosynthesis and use those toxins to be put back into the soil. That is why some plants give back to the soil more than others. For instance, if you want to refertilize a place for wheat, you plant beets the next year. And in the same sense, Equestria magic, I will refer to it as EM for short, so I'm not having to say 6 syllables to say one thing, keeps making itself more powerful. Starting with giving ponies its powers, then giving Luna and Celestia the power to move the sun and the moon, then giving Cadence the power to influence their relationships so they create loving, lasting relationships that can be reinforced, then giving Twilight and her friends little elements of harmony. After Celestia abused them, it took them away and only gave them back in a time of need. If you've actually seen any pictures from the original book, the Bible for the show, Celestia has pink hair before their civil war. It becomes rainbow afterwards. She used the elements of harmony to imprison her sister. That's a scar. That's a mark of you abused your power, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. And it's not quite sentient. It's what a scientist would refer to as semi-sentient. Something along the lines of a dolphin, or a rather intelligent shark, or a very, very, very smart monkey. It's not at the same level where we can sit here and discuss philosophy and crazy things off the wall, but it definitely can learn, and it definitely is figuring out what it can do and how to do it better using different tools. The ponies to it are just another tool in its arsenal. And EM requires the magic users to live and evolve. It requires them to use it so it can adapt, learn, and create new forms of magic. All of its symbiotic relationship requires others to use it. It cannot act entirely on its own. I say entirely. I will have to correct myself soon. Now, Flurry Heart, using this basis that magic is semi-alive. What happened the season before Flurry Heart shows up? You've seen it in the...
Or Flurry Heart in this case.
You know, I never realized that was misspelled. Thank you. What happened the season before? Very episode before, actually. Tyrick. What does the human body do when parts of it start to break or become non-functional? It tries to create replacements. So, going on that season theory, if all of the alicorns suddenly disappear, except one, and you had 4, and you need 4, and you would like to have 4 to function, what do you need to do now? You need to create new ones. So it thought it had 1. It didn't realize it had 1 that had all of their powers. It needs to create 3 more. Easiest way to create a new one, instead of trying to make a new Twilight, just make a new baby. It did it before with Celestia and Luna. It can do it again. Tyrick could also only affect ponies he had direct line of sight to. I don't know about you, but I ain't got X-ray vision. I'm pretty sure Tyrick doesn't either. Or didn't think to if he did. In the very next episode, Cadence has a baby. So EM Magic needed to replace what was missing and was trying to use Flurry Heart to do it, and then by then it was too late to undo it. And like any human body, when it's too late to undo something, well, you can't exactly undo it. I'll get to questions at the end. So, that means that we're just stuck with an alicorn that's extra. I'm not saying she's cancer. But I am saying it's cool to have a third arm. What about Fizzle? Well, the horn is what a unicorn uses to focus their magic, right? And now I'm going to say something, and all of you are going to stare at me, because I guarantee you none of you look at shadows.
Well, that's my mistake. I didn't know that. Mom, that's my bad. That's my bad. I'm sorry. I'm very, very sorry.
Now, about your betrayal.
Based on her actual name, that looks pretty fizzle poppy to me. I think she's doing exactly what her cutie mark that we never get to see should tell her to do. She's fizzling and a poppin'. And I say that not as a pun. I want an explanation here. Why is the horn in her shadows? Through the entire film, this is the best shot of it. Her horn is not deformed in her shadow. It's always there. What's going on? That's not how light refraction works. And it's always there. It is in every single shot. Anytime that her horn is included in her shadow, it's never broken. It's always as though it's full length. She's doing exactly what she's supposed to do. Now, if you haven't seen the end of the show, I'm going to now spoil everything, and this gets to be the part where I get to jump up and down and go, I was right, I was right, I was right. Equestrian magic is alive. So, Tree of Harmony, everyone. It's there. It is the epicenter for friendship magic. It is also the epicenter for all equestrian magic. It is not, however, the core of it. It is instead just an extension out of the ground. Think of it as your fingers reaching into the water to find something. You can't see it, and the fish on the other side can't really make you out very well either. The elements were formed by this ever-evolving, ever-changing place. The tree requires the elements to be returned from time to time because they're actually a part of it. Now, the real question is, how did magic decide this was the form it needed to take, and why did it pick the ponies? How do these magic items come into existence? You got Chrysalis's throne, you got Discord's seeds, you got a dragon staff that fires powerful zaps and can make the biggest Batman beacon I've ever seen. But more importantly, how did it know to do this?
You're not Headmare Twilight, are you?
You're the Tree of Harmony! The Tree of Harmony turned into a sparkly version of our Headmare to talk to us? Did I miss a chapter in class?
Like all living things, I change as I grow. As I have grown, so have my abilities.
I'm a bit rusty on pony history, but since when does the Tree of Harmony trap creatures in a cave with their biggest fears?
You chose what you saw in my roots, not me.
Our friendship got us past our fears.
You were more concerned with each other's well-being than your own. You were strong when your friends were weak. You let each other in and showed that you would be there for each other no matter what. Friendship is in your nature.
So, I was not expecting the Tree of Harmony, much less magic, to come out and say I'm a living creature. And just tell me that information 2 years after I made this panel. So yeah, I was jumping up and down and so happy for like an hour. Literally, the person who had told me that I was full of it for making this panel was in the room at the same time when this episode aired and was staring at it, jaw slackening, while I'm dancing around them, going, "I was right, I was right, I was right," for like an hour. I'm not even going to deny this was pretty proud for me. And this theory was put forth almost 3 years before this episode came out. So, magic is alive. It has been for a while, and now it's becoming sentient. It's not only becoming sentient, it's able to communicate. By definition, in biology and human communications, the two things I actually have degrees in, it's alive. It breathes. This is through other unicorns by exhaling with their magic or presenting cutie marks. It grows. It gets bigger. It gets smaller, it gets more powerful, it adapts and it changes as it moves through life, and it produces more of itself in different forms. Cutie mark magic, unicorn magic, friendship magic, discord to some degree, more alicorns. It just makes more of itself or what it needs through symbiosis. Lastly, it meets the requirements for sentience. It can communicate, it can understand, it has memory, and most importantly, it has needs, wants, and desires. What those are, it doesn't actually reveal. But it has them, and it has the will to execute a plan to create them. Hence having a griffin, a yak, a hippogriff, and a changeling get along, being something of importance to it. Because it has to test if, like the ponies, the magic of friendship that it created is in them as well. And the only way it can test that is by putting them into a trial of some sort to determine if they are willing to do similar actions despite no actual harm or risk being present. The creatures in question it's experimenting on don't know that, and its experiment is incredibly unethical and amoral, but I don't think it's developed morals and ethics yet. So, It's alive. It functions like a living creature, and that explains a lot about why everyone wants to possess it. Because they know it's alive and it can become more powerful. Hence Tyrek, or in some cases Chrysalis, or... I have no idea what Demon Child actually wanted or why. That was never really explained. Cozy Glow, you're just Demon Child to me. Now, G5 movie. This had never been included before. Where is that clip? Where are you hiding? Oh, there you are. So.
What?
What's going on?
We're actually flying! Oh, Sonny! Check you out! What? I can't believe it!
Now that's what I call a blow up.
Look! Daddy! The magic is real! Wow!
Now, my questions are as follows. One, who made those stones? And why?
Twilight?
Likely Twilight.
Likely, but, you know, why?
Make your Mark II.
Have you seen the episode yet?
They came out Monday. I haven't had time to see the episodes, review them, do some digging, do some more research, get references for what I'm thinking about, and then reevaluation.
Oh, this isn't the comics.
You need some
Could it
viewing
be that
then.
she was scared of it? I mean, magic being sentient is kind of frightening.
Yeah,
Could have been that she tried to get rid of it.
that is a possibility. A bigger question, why does the magic keep needing to be more powerful? Does it have some end goal, or is it scared of something else? That's another possibility, is what is it afraid of? Because we keep seeing throughout G4, and now into G5, existential threats coming out of the woodwork that are from outside of the country of Equestria. Because remember, the planet's called Equus, and there's more than just Equestria on the planet. As shown by the G4 movie, as shown by several episodes where they go off to like Griffinstone, or they go off to the Dragon Realms, or they go to Hippogriff Land. It's a different country, effectively.
You need a new episodes for some new TVs to help.
I need more information, yes. Another question that pops into my head, I'm going to get to Q&A here very shortly. Another question that pops into my head when I'm reviewing all of this is, why? Why would this need to exist? And then I see other things happening. Why is there only one cutie mark instead of one on each side? Because their cutie marks in the G5 movie only appear on one side. Why are they less prominent and less visible? What happened? Why was their power clearly diminished, both to create the mark on them as well as its influence on their lives? What prompted effectively a civil war along racial lines? These are questions I have to ask, because when I start getting into, well, if magic is sentient and it relies on society, then we're talking about the study of anthropology and history. And as those two things get closer and closer together, we stop getting answers and we get more questions and more questions and more questions, and I have nowhere to go. Except for to wait and see. But waiting and seeing sucks. The last time I got told to wait and see, Tony Fleece was making a comic, and the next issue they got released was Tempest complaining, "Where's the Princess of Explosions?" And then Tony sending me an email that says, "You want to read this comic because you're in it," and it's literally just him dropping that. I'm like, I hate you. So, before you ask questions, I'm going to use a terrible line from a terrible company. You have phones, don't you? We all as humans have goldfish brains. We will forget something the moment we get back up to our rooms. I will forget stuff the moment I leave this room and get to my vendor table. It'll just happen. So if you want to follow me or anything I do, there's all the relevant links. Use your phone to take a picture to remind yourself later, or if you want to make sure you do it, punch them in now on your phone before you leave this room, because you'll forget it by the time you get to back to your own room or you go to lunch. Trust me, I have had people literally take a business card from me, come back to me 2 hours later and go, "What was your YouTube channel?" And I'm staring at them like, I gave you a business card that I have so very few of and don't actually print new ones of because I'm trying to get rid of them, and you forgot in 2 hours. Also, I don't issue business cards because people put them in their pocket and then it gets put in the wash and then it's useless, or you put it in your wallet and 3 weeks later you're like, "What's this?" and you just throw it away. That's what happens to 99.9% of them. So, you know, I know they don't work, but I know this does. Anyway, I knew there was a question here and there was a question here. Who wants to go first? Go ahead.
Are Wendigos part of that magic?
They're an outside force. No, there is something that actively threatens it.
Because they seem to like be for the same kind of equality and like make sure everyone is like harmonizing with each other. So I would consider that the same goal, basically.
The way a Wendigo works in my eyes is the same way that a Native American Wendigo, or it's based on a Native American Wendigo, which is that greed and hubris and resentment of your fellow tribe members has now resulted in your own destruction. The Wendigo's objective being the destruction of all life, because they find life reviling their spirits, after all, which are not fully really fleshed out or explained, but as far as where they come from, they clearly come from outside of Equestria, meaning they're an existential threat, not an internal one. Equestria doesn't really have anywhere that's completely frozen, save for up in the Crystal Empire, and it becomes unfrozen.
True.
Yes?
You said that the magic created created Flurry Heart. What about, because it saw a lack of alicorns, wouldn't that mean that there would be more, like Flurry Heart, more tiny alicorns somewhere in Equestria?
Yes!
That would explain.
I want you to realize how terrifying that is for a moment, and then realize, wait, where are the other two?
So, have you met Opaline yet?
Yes.
And second question, with Zebra, so we saw on Zecora she has something like a Q mark. This
glyph mark.
Yeah, glyph mark, yeah. Does that have magic, or does that have any connection with the magic of Equestria?
From the comics, I can say yes. From the show, I have nothing to show you. They don't fully explore the idea of zebras or zebraca in the show. They do very little exploration of it in the comics, but they do some. It's more explored in the realms of things like Fallout Equestria and fan fiction than anywhere else, which makes research on it incredibly difficult. What it turns out is they have like 7 comics that really discuss anything zebra related, and that's where all of the information I can say that is canonized is from, is those 7 comics, barely 200 pages of pictures with some text. No offense to comics. Comics are wonderful, and I love commissioning them, and I love to have them, but they don't provide tons of information when you're a scientist trying to research something, or when you're a media specialist trying to research the origins of Superman and what parts of Superman become public domain this year. Well, guess what? Good luck. Yes?
So, first time around you dodged my question with the perfect slide, but so do I understand correctly that you automatically reject all outside universe explanations for things like in the example you said, like why G5 have smaller cutie marks and only on one side. We have a outside universe explanation from the actual art director who said that larger cutie marks stretch too much in like 3D software.
I know we have an outside
So do you understand correctly that you reject all of these explanations and instead assume that there's a in-universe explanation for it and then go search for it?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Well, yes, and here's why. Out-of-universe reasonable explanations for things happen all of the time, but if you're going to be a good storyteller and a good story writer when it comes to explaining a story, if you make a decision that is extra-universe, i.e. outside of the universe that the story takes place in, you need an internal reason for why that happened, or you're a bad storyteller. I do not assume that someone who gets greenlit to spend millions of dollars creating film is a bad storyteller. I assume either they're ignorant or that they have a reason for what they're doing. And most of the time they have a reason. It's the same reason why someone like Del Toro takes Pacific Rim and the camera zooms in on the robots and moves up and down and everything seems to move slowly. His out-of-universe reason is he wants you to watch the pretty. His in-universe reason is something that big and gigantic is not going to move at the speed of Jackie Chan. Which makes sense. From a biology standpoint, the larger the creature, the slower it physically actually is. Even if, because it's larger, say for a T-Rex for instance, a T-Rex, yes, it can bite a human in half. No questions asked.
Do you make any exceptions at all to this rule?
No. As a scientist, if I'm going to make a rule, I have to stick to that rule and make zero exception. That means that if someone has a fan fiction explanation for something, I can't take that. So for me, a person who writes Fallout Equestria books, when I do science panels like this, I have to go back and verify where my information came from and create a hardened reference page in my notes. So I can go, okay, I know where I got this, and it's not from FOE, so I can't use anything, and I'm not supposed to use anything from FOE. Let me double check and make sure that this exists in the universe canon and that I didn't get this from a fan fiction, or I didn't get this from a voice actor Q&A, or I didn't get this from a Q&A with Jim Miller. I have to take all that into account.
You also exclude information gained in interviews.
I exclude information gained in interviews where they are discussing an extra-universe explanation. But if the explanation given in the interview is discussing something that's supposed to be canon to the universe, I include it. So something like in 2014, they were Faust was asked at a panel at PonyCon, how do you get more ponies? And then she said, I imagine they reproduce like any other mammals. Okay, well, that's a decent in-canon universe explanation. And it doesn't make me jump through hoops, and it makes sense, and she's explaining this as in-universe rather than extra-universe. I can take that. In the very back behind him.
Did you ever have the problem that a fan fiction provided something that was very logical or very, very valid in a sense, but you couldn't confirm otherwise? So
many times.
Okay, and what do you do then?
I go through the fan fiction. A lot of the time, I just contact the author and go, "Where'd you get this? Did you get this idea from a canon source, or did you make it up?" And other times, if I can't get a hold of the author, then I review the comments section first to figure out if anybody points out, where they think this is referenced from. If I can't find it there, then I go to where I think it should be. And if I can't find it there, I do the unthinkable. I prop my feet up on the couch for an entire week and watch every single season over the course of 4 hours. Over the course of watching 4 to 6 hours of My Little Pony every day, while flipping through the comics to see if there was some other explanation that makes this fan fiction's pointing to. And if all of that fails, I go, well, it's fan fiction made up. Throw it to the wayside and move on. Yes.
You mentioned earlier when Fiaura was born that the magic did this before. But the sister said in herself that the born of an alicorn was something even above their understanding. Wouldn't that mean that they are naturally born alicorns?
They don't understand how it happens. Even Star Swirl the Bearded in the original Bible that was created to show what happened, the Book of the Twin Sisters is what I'm referring to. Mm-hmm. Even he says he doesn't understand how they were born, but he's begun to understand their purpose. Is to relieve us of this duty where we must sacrifice our very beings every day to cause the day to turn. And that they will have to step into that role. And in every picture in the Book of the Twin Sisters, they are depicted as alicorns. Mm-hmm. So I have to assume from that information, while nothing directly says that they were born and I am willing to be corrected, I have to assume they were born as alicorns. And that even Star Swirl the Bearded, a pony who studied magic for an undefined amount of time, because in every single shot, he's old. He's shown as being old. But then when I go through the entire series, and I go through all of the comics, there aren't any other old unicorns. There aren't. Mistmane is artificially aged, so I throw her out because it was done artificially with magic. But there's not a single one.
Unicorn died.
Trixie's dad.
Trixie's dad does not appear to have signs of aging.
He's pretty young.
He does. He has some wrinkles.
Right.
We do also see older Earth ponies and Pegasi. They don't necessarily always have a beard.
So here's the difference in what I see with that aging. We see older Earth ponies and they're old and decrepit. Granny Smith, Golden Apple. They look really old. We see older Pegasi and they have wrinkles on their face and that's about it. Examples being, I forget his name, but the guy who double crosses Rainbow Dash to prevent her from being inducted into the Wonderbolts. Rainbow Dash's, Spitfire's mom. They're depicted as older. Then I look at Rainbow Dash's parents, and they don't look a day past Rainbow Dash's 18. So to me, when I see this information, and I realize that Spitfire's mom and Granny Smith are the same age, you see where this is going.
So, Pegasi and unicorns are Asians.
So, when I look at this, it goes, okay, I don't see any old unicorns in the show. I see one unicorn that gets artificially aged, one unicorn who starts as old and ends as old, and no one could ever tell when he actually started. So that's all the old ones I see from them. Older Pegasi have wrinkles here and there, but nothing really definitive that says I'm getting old. And Earth ponies, when they're said to be old, are decrepit. Earth ponies age rapidly and have short lives. Pegasi have medium-rated lives, and unicorns really are kind of like the equivalent of elves. And now to get into something dark. If that's true, then taking U.S. Census data and Granny Smith saying that she... So we're going to start with this. Granny Smith says that she came to Ponyville, there was no Ponyville. U.S. Census data says that if a town develops, an actual town, recognized township, in the western frontier, over 2 generations, it took between 46 and 50 years, averaging to 48 years for it to go from homestead to township over the course of 2 generations. That's if it's a 2-generation to township, which it is. Granny Smith, Applejack's parents, Applejack. 2 generations, you have a township. So taking this into account, that means Granny Smith is somewhere between 46 and 55.
And looks dead.
And looks on death's door. Spitfire's mom should be relatively the same age, because for a person to reach command rank status within a unit in the United States military, or most militaries for that matter that in the West, that's usually the rank of lieutenant colonel before you're put in charge of a base, or its equivalent. To reach lieutenant colonel, you have to be in the military for 20 to 30 years, putting Spitfire between the ages of 43 and 53. And her mom has to be at least 18 years older.
Don't you really want to take the out-of-universe answer here? Because...
I could!
These things, but then there is entire absence of universe reacting to this in any way, right? Like
there's not.
But if it's just normal to them...
So from the panel that I do where I talk about how old the ponies are, it's normal to them. And you want to know how I know it's normal to them? The Cutie Mark Crusaders. It's the dumbest thing in the world, but it's sitting there, and I'm trying to figure out why it's normal to them, why their society is structured like this, why that it just works this way. There is one Cutie Mark Crusader episode where Sweetie Bloom takes the lead, where it's her adventure. There are 6 where it's about Scootaloo. The other 14 are Apple Bloom. If you have relative age differences at how quickly you age, and you're a similar species, it is found in science that the species that lasts the shortest time will live life the fastest. It's why in fantasy, humans get 9 rings of power, and dwarves get 5, and elves get 3. Let's just go with that analogy for a second. What's happening here is Scootaloo and Sweetie Bloom recognize that Apple Bloom will die before they reach middle age. They are trying to ensure their friend has a good life.
Wow.
The other 2 Crusaders will be dead and buried, and Sweetie Bloom won't even have a wrinkle yet.
But shouldn't then you also expect unicorns to, like, say, meet my mother and my grandmother and grandmother and grandmother.
Absolutely.
And so on. And we never see that.
We saw Rarity's parents.
Yeah, and where are their parents then?
Oh, yeah, the mustache.
We didn't get to see their parents, but they were going to go visit them. You see the problem? They're all still alive, and Granny Smith is over here. Back in my day, I knew my daddy. Yes.
Right, I have 2 things. One is a counterpoint to the Earth Pony aging thing. Earth Ponies, from what we understand, are the most manual labor intensive, right?
Yes, they're also the most numerous when I sit there and actually physically count the number of them.
So I would go to assume that, they spend the most time outside in the muck and dirt in any condition. That's going to do things to anybody. And then my question is, because you were mentioning about the magic of Equestria essentially adapting to any threat that comes along, what that reminds me of is the canon explanation that we got for Anakin Skywalker's birth. That being, when Sidious and Plagueis were basically trying to play God with the Force said, absolutely not, and we are now going to create an entity that will balance out the Force. And if you technically think about it, Anakin did balance out the number of Jedi and Sith. It took him a few decades, and he had to turn to the dark side, but he did it.
Now I have a counterpoint for your Earth ponies doing the most manual labor.
Oh.
Pegasi get electrocuted the most. And unicorns explode the most. Because practicing magic, what's the most common thing that happens to Twilight? Boom! Huh.
And
that didn't work right.
All equally partial to dying.
Yes. They're made of dark matter.
But if they are all aging slower, wouldn't that still mean you would see them somewhere? Like, I mean, if you have 2 equally or differently slowly all these species, you would still have the same proportion of it. Couldn't it simply be that they are aging the same? It's simply that it doesn't show that much.
You know, that I could take that, if not for the fact that when I see, let's see, I'm actually diving into my Google Drive where my panels are. You're making me work here.
GG, prof.
All right. Yoink. Converting power from. Oh, I don't want to download the power. I want to download the ODT. Thank you. How long? I know it's not that big. What is it, 7 megs? And you're at 5? Come on. There you go. So, this was actually one of the very first panels I ever presented for this fandom. Because I stayed up for 3 days to figure it out. So, hi. Somebody drew this for me a long time ago. I don't ever use her. When this was made, this was the only old Pegasus we ever saw on screen.
Yeah.
When I sit here and count pony populations, there are 6 unicorns in this shot, 7 Pegasi, and every one of the others are Earth ponies. I've highlighted the P's and U's for you. And this chart apparently did not download properly. That's annoying. Why does Spitfire's mom look young? She's got like a wrinkle under her eye. And she looks a little tired. That's it. So using Western Towns, I was able to determine that Granny Smith being the 2nd generation and it taking roughly 41 years, plus the age she would have been when she moved there, she comes out to be about 48 years old. The scary part is she probably won't live another 3 to 5 years. Yes, this is where things get a little dark. Applejack by this logic would be Applejack and Pinkie Pie by this logic would be replaced within the main 6 3 times before Fluttershy or Rainbow Dash and 22 times before Rarity.
One question. So why is there a maximum age for Granny? Like the minimum age would be 48, but Pony Captain.
Based upon her current age and the way her body acts, as well as the way that others are taking care of her constantly and ensuring she's doing okay, despite the fact she says I'm perfectly fine, but oftentimes they're helping her to the door or doing work for her or trying to keep things from not stressing her. She's the same relative age I would expect a human being in a nursing home to be. Based just on her solely on the physical condition of her health without being able to actually examine her directly, I would estimate she has about half a decade at most.
Yeah, but my question is, it's so it says Granny Smith is only 48 years old, but but Ponyville could have been it could have been 2 generations. But it could have also been, Ponyville could have lasted maybe like a decade or 2 longer than the amount that the...
No. Granny Smith came to Ponyville as a child without a cutie mark, and it didn't exist when she got there. It became their homestead. During the time in which Applejack's parents existed, they had yet to form a town. They had multiple homesteads, with the Pear Butters being their rivals. It wasn't until Applejack's generation that they formed a township. Ponyville is a new town. Yes?
But Twilight Sparkle in the winter wrap-up remarks that Ponyville has been cleaning up winter themselves for hundreds of years.
Yes, and then later information indicates that Ponyville hasn't existed for hundreds of years. So what is likely meant is ponies have been cleaning up winter for hundreds of years.
So like it wasn't officially founded.
Yeah.
But then in the Granny Smith's flashback, they are the ones settling the place.
They are the ones creating the first homestead.
Yeah.
So what I'm using is IRS census data for what is the average amount of time to pass between founding a homestead, the first homestead, and founding the township. Assuming that there are only 2 generations. So I'm narrowing it down to a 2-generation time for the amount of time you go from the first homestead to a township, and the time comes to 40 to 41 years on average.
Okay, but what did you do with the Twilight Sparkle remark about the hundreds of years?
What does she exactly say?
That's a good question, because I haven't heard that remark.
If she said, Ponyville has been cleaning up winter for hundreds of years, but we know from everything else, which is a lot.
That Ponyville hasn't existed for hundreds of years.
She was new to the town. I think that she just made a mistake.
Maybe she misspoke.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the very, assuming people, if not spoiler alert, if anybody hasn't seen the very last episode of season
It's been 3 years. If you haven't seen it, the spoiler alert's off the table. Go.
In the very, very last episode, you get to see the flashback or the current, now older, everybody main 6. You see, Rarity has a giant gray stripe. She has wrinkles. So has everybody else at the same time. Is it then to assume that a lot of unicorns color their hair? Or is it that Rarity just ages? Because then everybody seemed to go in the same age.
Yeah.
But everybody has different lifespans. So technically, should Pinkie Pie and Applejack look a lot older?
Or be dead.
Now here's where I get confused when asking questions. So very last episode, where are their parents?
That too.
Where's Granny Smith?
Well,
There's a little handkerchief on Applebloom, I believe.
no, not Applejack. Applejack's the one who has.
Jim confirmed their death, and Jim is gone. So
drawing from this, looking at the last episode, most of their friends are gone. Most of their family are gone. Outside of the main 6.
Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to be the elements of harmony. And we know the elements can do really weird magic.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them to have had their aging slowed on purpose.
Yeah, or
until
matched up.
a new generation could be found that could replace them.
Funny.
Didn't we saw the CMCs in that shot too? Didn't we saw the CMCs there too?
Yeah, and later in the
I have no idea what
later
you
in the
said.
episode you
The
get to see
Cookie
them at
Crusaders.
school.
Cookie Crusaders.
Yeah.
Are all
And they of course they looked a little bit older,
They
but
looked grown up.
not too much old.
But I couldn't tell their age regardless. Like, they all look older, cool, but I can't actually tell you how much time has passed. No one, they give us no definition of how much time.
But it didn't have
20 years, that's it?
But it didn't pass enough
years.
time for Applebloom to die, but enough time for Rarity to age.
Yes.
because there was a spoiler before the official airing of the episode, and they hadn't changed the 20 years part to moons yet.
Okay, I didn't see the spoiler, and more importantly, I actually don't know how long a moon is to them.
Nobody knows, but it said several moons.
No, there's no defined definition.
There actually is.
Where?
In the episode where Rainbow Dash joins Granny Smith and the other Golden Girls to Las Pegasus, they say every moon they go to Las Pegasus, and at the very end of the episode, yeah, you're going to join us next year.
So
one
moon is a
moon
year.
is 1 year.
Well, actually, no, I actually got myself wrong because I thought this is just that. What if they mean by every moon? Do you mean every full moon?
Yeah, a lot of people
And a full
thought
moon
that.
happens every month, so they must have to mean
No.
1 moon a month.
In the episode, they say Granny Smith says
she's
to
right.
Rainbow
The
Dash.
episode does say
So,
that. So a
right,
moon is
but
a year.
The point is, they've used a moon to reference a month. They have actually used a moon to reference a month, which is why I'm like, I actually don't know how long a moon is.
Yeah, moon.
They've also used a moon to reference a year. They've used a moon to reference 1,000 years in one case, and I'm just staring at it like, make up your mind how long this is!
Or they use different moons.
Or they have more than one moon. But that's fan theory land.
So maybe like half a moon is half a year, and a new moon is 1 month.
But
And a full moon is here.
but saying they have more than one moon is fan theory land, and I have no proof.
That is of course correct. Yeah.
You base the few on your calculations that Ponyville has more Earth ponies, but since Ponyville was formed by Earth ponies and you have a lot of other cities that have less to no Earth ponies, would it be normal that in Ponyville there are more Earth ponies than the other races? I mean, you have Las Vegas, you have Hartsdale, they have no of the other races.
I would say yes, except for when we go visit Canterlot, when we go visit Crystal Empire Land, when we go visit Manhattan, and when we go visit Las Pegasus. There are still relatively the same population ratios in non-specialized cities. So Canterlot has more unicorns. What is it called? Cloudsdale has mostly Pegasi. But when you go to the non-specialized cities, it's very much still mixed along the lines of more Earth ponies to Pegasi to unicorns. Like, I just sat, like, just imagine for a minute sitting there watching episodes and all you're doing is just making a check mark every time a different pony appears on screen, whether or not it's an Earth Pony, Unicorn, or Pegasi. That's literally what I did.
Did you look in all of them, they're collected for feast or for fest, or simply what you see on the street? Because if Earth Ponies are the ones who make the more physical labor, and of course they are the ones you see more outside.
Okay, so the way I collected data was every single Earth Pony I saw, every single Earth Pony, Pegasi, or Unicorn I saw on screen. Every single time one was mentioned that never appeared on screen. Go look up on the wiki, figure out what it is, mark a tally. Every single time that one showed up on a piece of paper on screen but would never actually appeared on screen. Such as a name is mentioned. And every single time that they casually mention someone who doesn't appear. I went and checked what that pony's supposed to be. If I couldn't find an answer, I had another column that just said, don't know. And sat there and did that for about a week. Because, you know, if you're going to do research on a fandom, you're going to spend 2 to 5 hours a night just kind of watching the same thing you've watched before, only now you're checking for specific data. Yes?
You were asking earlier about the crystals from G5. Twilight did it. This is from the Canon Comics, by the way.
And
I haven't got a hold of those yet.
And would you like to know why? Racism.
Wow!
Yeah.
Wait, what?
G5 did Twilight dirty. That's me.
Okay, so how I determined Pegasi age was there are 11 leaders of the Wonderbolts in 1,000 years. Because we understand that the Wonderbolts are founded the year after Luna's banished.
Yeah.
Well, you say racism, huh? But in the second episode of Making Mark 2, Twilight states that she did that to make a barrier against...
Hold on. So at this point, I now have to figure out how old Pegasi are using the idea that there are 11 commanders. You would think 11 divided into 1,000 would make that number. And you'd be wrong! You have to do contratated math. This is the idea that you have to figure out what the average age is when they take over and what the average age of retirement is. Truncated, everyone. It's fun. So, we take 1,000 divided by 11, we get 90.9. Then we assume that Firefly gets 1/3 of his lifespan as the commander of the Wonderbolts, and Spitfire has only been commander around 10 because she still looks like she's in her younger years, and I have to take that for face value. So, we take 1,000 minus the massive truncated amount of math here, all divided by the 9 remaining commanders that haven't been mentioned. Because Firefly was old when he became commander, and Spitfire is still young, so you have to cut off the ends. And we come out to they are in charge for roughly 98.76 years each. Then we add 12 years for how long it takes a Pegasi to mature. Just as a relative estimate. Plus 6, because 6 is the age they are said to start school. And they spend 12 years maturing from the time they start school, according to the comics and according to Cheerlead from the show. Lastly, we had 5 years post-retirement to figure out how long they get to be retired for and do absolutely nothing, because we see Granny Smith and the Golden Girls kicking around and doing whatever they want for the twilight years of their life. Bringing us to a grand whopping total of 121.76 years for a Pegasus from birth to death. On average. I love truncated math. I hate life.
So you're winding up.
Thank you for that. I find it very interesting.
This is how you do biological math when you're looking at different societies from an anthropological standpoint to figure out what the average age range of them doing something is without having to directly talk to them, such as the uncontacted tribe.
And it's very cool.
Yes.
So, I think I saw this actually. When Lauren Faust was asked about the issue of pony lives and the idea of that Twilight is now immortal, she's now immortal, etc., etc., she replied, Twilight will not outlive her friends.
Yes!
So the implication could very well be that either the entire, main 6 are now immortal, or, as was suggested, their age was actually truncated and reduced to whatever the time was.
To be in sync with each other.
Decided that a new
Which is going to be like a really sad national funeral day when they all kick the bucket on the same night. Yes.
I was just curious, how do you treat the comics whenever you're doing research? Because I know, like...
As canon as possible, so long... Comics, if they contradict the televised show, are second class to the televised show. But otherwise, the comics are as canon as possible. Wow, that GIF is actually not going to work. That's funny.
But we all know it.
So, here's my problem. So they've got a younger daughter, a full-grown son who's reached the rank of unit commander. As a matter of fact, he's the literal head of the military in Equestria. Why do they not look a day over her? Why does she look older than them? That's my problem. Anyway, I am out of time.
No!
Well, this Q&A session took a left-hand turn and required me to open 2 other panels.
But yeah, watching new episodes, it might give some new interesting stuff.
I am looking forward to being able to sit down, watch the new episodes, and adjust all of these panels and possibly write new ones, because I would really like to write some new ones.
Over a few new weeks, I guess.
It'll be an adventure for me to sit up and go, huh, neat. And other times for me to go, wow, I was wrong. Look at an entire panel and go, flamethrower, you're done. And then proceed to post a retraction on somewhere like YouTube or at all panels I go to from then on. Because I am a scientist, I reserve the right to be wrong. It is a fact of life. Science works on a very simple principle as I try to... You know what? I'm going to do this the smart way and just go to the very last slide. That's what I wanted. Slideshow. How do I go to... Thank you. So, I'm a scientist. I reserve the right to be wrong because science is very simple. Theorize about it. I'm going to use my one F-bomb. Fuck around. Find out. Take notes. That's literally what science is. Theorize, mess around, find out, take notes. Mess around some more. Adjust the messing around until you figure out exactly how it works.
Yeah, there's some quotes from some scientists about that.
That is the short version of the hypothesis theory that we usually use for the practice of science.
A movie called Science or something, if you knew what happened, or
Exactly.
research.
So in the meantime, thank you all for coming. I will be in the vendor hall. I need to get rid of that stuff to go, because some of it I really don't want to take back home. I have books, I have pins, I have plushies, I have all sorts of things. Furthermore, that sort of stuff funds this sort of research, because I can't sit around and, you know, do this research if I don't have money in the bank to pay the rent to keep the lights on. And every little bit helps. In the meantime, I hope you all had a wonderful time and found this entertaining, educational, or if you really, really want to throw tomatoes at me now. Thank you.